Hi guys, I received this file from one of these students. He got an inquiry about the corridor that's making funny shapes. Mainly, I'll show you what it looks like. As you can see, first of all, navigating with corridors, it's slower. So usually we create surfaces rather than keep the corridor itself to look at it in a 3D. But I don't have the surfaces created yet. I'll just try to navigate slowly here, just to show you where the issue is. Mainly that's where the issue. As you can see here, the intersection seems to be the targets are not correct when you have problem, and mainly the vertical, the horizontal, the profile or the vertical targets are not correct for that area there. I can see there are some other issues. For example, the targets on the outside are not placed yet for the daylight, and the same thing applies there. So there are a few things that we can fix here. I thought just to put it in a video that you can see, in case you may have some common issues that you are dealing with. Okay, so our focus will be in this area to start with, and then we start fixing other issues around the project. So our work is in this area here. I'll try to find out the naming of the components. So that would be, if I select the alignment, that is intersection 2 southwest, that makes sense, and that's intersection 2. Okay, so the first thing, I'll just click on the corridor. I'll try to look into the target of that particular area, and that will open the targets here. First of all, as we agreed, there's no targets for the existing surface that has to be added for the daylight. So you've got, just focus with me, you've got three main components. They have to have targets, and the correct targets. So daylight must target the surface on the outside, because that's where we need to create the cut and fill. And we've got the side, not the sidewalks, sorry, the lanes. I've got the lanes in the width, has to create a proper width target, and the lane, there we go, that's where the issue is, the lane on the profile. So by mistake, this student has targeted the urban sidewalk by mistake. Okay, so we have to target the lane, we have to make sure the lane has targets. Okay, so first of all, I'll delete these targets here, we don't need them, and we will create targets for the lanes. And because I don't know the naming there, what I'll do, I'll select them from the screen, and by clicking, so rather than checking from the menu here, I'll go check from the screen, because I don't know the names of the components. So this is our lanes area. We want it to target this line and this line. We want to be confined always between this line and that line. Okay, so target one would be that, and that gave me alignment left 3600, which is offset by 3600. Make sure it's added. And also the second one, I'll go choose it, which was that. I need to choose this alignment here, and that gave me two different profiles. So I have to choose the proposed profile, not the existing surface profile. Click OK, and we fix the surface target, and that's okay. There we go, that fixed the issue, I think. Let's have a look at the surface for that, or the profile, or the corridor in general, which is very slow. I don't recommend you looking into the corridor, especially if you're working on your own personal computer. That may slow your work. And that issue has been fixed around this area here. Okay. Now let's go back and fix all the daylights issue on the outside, and see if there's any other issues that has to be fixed. Okay, one of the things that I would like to show, got a few other problems are coming here, which is events is giving us some warnings. That's fine, we'll deal with those and fix them. Most of those, they talk about the um, this should be about the targets for the outside. Okay, so let's go along and first of all add all the external targets for the daylight. All these areas, as you can see, the daylight here, and stops suddenly around this area here. That means we have to add a daylight target. A daylight target. I've got the daylight targets here. This is already been added. I just added this one here. I've got the same thing along this intersection here. So I'll quickly add them. As we agreed, three main components, they must have targets. The daylight, looking at the assembly here, sub-assembly name, the daylight must have the surface target, and I've got the lanes should have a targets. Okay, and that's been added. Got this area here, and that area. Overall, the work on this file looks good. We've got a few issues that we need to deal with. For example, I've got this area here, it doesn't have targets, and this is a common issue that most students having. Simply, if you look at your corridor slightly outside the surface, this is the edge of the surface here, the green light here, and your corridor is slightly outside that surface. That's why it can't read any targets of the surface. So all you have to do, just slide the corridor. We don't need the corridor to be all the way to the outside. Just give it somewhere in here. That may just change your data of cut and fill with very small amount, which is not a problem as long as we cover all this area here. And I can see the frequency of the sections. As you can see here, I've got one section here, another section there at that location. That means the frequency of the sections, it's not very high. I've got very long distance between the sections, so I prefer to reduce that. Let's make them at least 5 meters around this area here. So if I select the corridor, be conscious, don't make too high frequency, because that will make your corridor very larger in size. Okay, it will make it, especially if you work on your computer, may make it a bit slower. So all I need to do is edit the frequency for this area here, and I'll make it 5 meters rather than 20 meters. And around that, 5 meters. Maybe this one here. If you find it slowing your computer a lot, you can change it to go back to 20. Okay, so that gave us a bit better details here. I can see the corridors, they're overlapping with each other currently. Like this area here, I should first of all stretch it back to be around this area here. So I shift right click up to here, intersection. That's a bit too much. Good enough. Anyway, just keep an eye that keeping all the corridors that you're creating with minimum overlap. Like this corridor is overlapping with that currently. So what I should do, I just should slide this corridor back somewhere around here. Just keep minimum overlap between the corridors. Okay. One other thing that I can notice here, I've got a huge amount of cut and fill. I can see the daylight very large on both sides of this profile, around here, around this area there, and that should be because of a profile issues. That means the proposed profile is so far away from the existing grant profile, and we are forcing the road to create daylight from that height all the way to this height, either in cut, either in fill in this area, or cut around that area. So this seems to be a good profile, not too bad, but let me show you, if you have your profile, how can you amend that profile to make it better fit. So if I, but just by clicking on the profile here, on the vertical profile, if I click on geometry editor, that will allow me to add extra vertical points. So if I add these points, I think the profile should go to this point here and then goes up. So I'll add a point around here, and I'll keep that in a minute that we can amend that area. I'll add another point around here to come closer to the surface, and maybe I can see there's a point around here should be added. Okay, these are the points that I think we still need. If we find that we need more points, we can add them in a minute. Okay, just the software asking me to add more points. That's all the points. By pressing enter, that will add these points here. Okay, so these points being added now. By adding these points, what I can do, I can add I need to add the curve for these points. Okay, so I need to add a free vertical curve. The word free, that means this curve doesn't have any criteria as by itself. It's always controlled by the item before and after, which is the tangent before and after. So it's not fixed by itself. It's free and controlled by all the objects around it. So we shouldn't go to the fixed options or floating. We should go to the free option, and asking me what's the main the first part that you need to add that to it. So I'll add that here and here, and should be asking me for the K value. Let me just make sure the screen is always shown. So it's asking me for the K value. Select the K value, or it could be not asking me for that. So what I'll do to make sure it's asking for the K value here, I can't read the menu, sorry, because of the recording software. Let's see if I can hide that. Will make it easier. No. Okay, so even if it's not asking me for the K value, it's cancelled. Okay. Let me just fix that software thing. I'll keep the software here so you can see the menus. Okay. Alright then. So again, going back to add a free vertical curve parabola, it's asking me for the two components before and after. Select the first entry. This is the first entry. That's the first line before the curve, and that's the second line after the curve. Asking me what is the K value or radius or length. So even if it doesn't ask you for the K value, you can select the K by pressing K, enter. Asking me, okay, what is the K value? I'll choose 15. I think we can choose up to 20 here. We wouldn't have any issues, so I'll choose 20s for those just to make sure we're good. And that's added the curve here. And we added another point around this area. So that's the curve we just fixed. Got that. That's all what we had before. The peak. Okay. So let's go back to this point here. I've got these two around this point. They have to have a curve. So that will be these two. I added them. What is the K value? 20. Stick with that. Added the curve. And there's another point around here. And 20. Asking for the first. Okay, that's fine. We'll do it again. Added them, and 20 for the K value. Done. So that's it. I think we added them all. If I click on them, perfect. So what I can do now, I'm just trying to create a better fit for our profile, close enough to the existing ground profile. So I'll lower this bit down here, and see if we can make that goes up that way. Still, I'm a bit lower here, so what I'll do, I'll try to raise the entire tangent close to the surface. as you saw, it doesn't take long to create an extra point. If I find that I need to add an extra point in a minute, we will do that. But so far I think that should do the job. Looking at those, and I've got to raise this area here close to the surface, and that will be the same. This curve, I'll move it away. Now it's too high here near the surface, I'll lower it a bit down. Doesn't allow me to lower this too much. Can lower that. So I think this is a better fit between the existing and the proposed. Are much closer to each other. So I'll close that for now. I'll go to my corridor and rebuild all the corridors, rebuild automatic, all of them. And let's go have a look at our cut and fill. As you can see, our cut and fill much narrower now. We did not have to create too much of a cut and fill away from the surface. I still have some around this area here, which is, let's see if we can reduce that a little bit. We can. That's rebuilding the model. And that's it. Maybe we can lower that on the peak area. See if we can move it a bit that way. Anyway, there's endless amount of adjustment that you can do as much as you want to make a best fit between your proposed profile and your existing profile. I think that is good enough for now. That's not great around this area here. Look here, got too much. What I'll do, because I've got too much around here, I'll shorten this curve, vertical curve. And I'll move it in one direction to start with. So I'll move it around here. Rather than creating one curve at the top, I'll flatten it a bit more by shortening these two curves, and I'll create another point here, just so I can make sure everything will be as I would like it to be. So again, going back to geometry editor, and no, I don't want to delete point, we add point around this area here, then I'll add a curve for it. And the K value I'll choose to be 20. Okay, now I think we've got much better fit. Just to double check everything, I'll go through all the K values. So I've got two small K values there. See if we can change them automatically, otherwise I'll go find them and fix them. So let's make that 20. And that couldn't solve it, that's fine. I'll go in a minute and fix it. We may need to increase the size of the curve, and the same thing here. So that's the second, and 1, 2, 3, 4. The second and the fourth one, they have to be fixed. Okay, so looking at the curves, so this is the first one, this is the second one, and that it's giving me a large number there. We can do, just slide it a bit down here, and then move that vertical point down. That will make the curve flatter. It's all about your K value will be much higher when you make the curve flatter. That's what we're trying to do. So as you can see, our K value now, rather than 4, it's 44. And this one here, I want it to be higher, closer to the existing surface. And that can be done That's it. I've got very good here, so I'm just looking at the K values 44, 41, 9. That's a bit, so let's make that flatter by widening the curve. That's now 13, much better. And this value here is 4.6, that's very small. That's 11. And now that's 13, it's good around that one particular point. And 147. I think that's good outcome so far. I'm happy with that. And 20. The result of that, we reduced the amount of cut and fill, as you can see, around the road. Again, to check all of this, as I said, rather than checking for the three corridors I've got there, which is will slow your computer down. It's easier, it doesn't take long to create a corridor for this, a surface for the corridor. So just by clicking on the corridor, go corridor surface, we add the corridor, we add the where do we want the surface, and we add the boundary. Apply and OK. Same here. Corridor surface, corridor, we want the surface and the boundary. So instead of looking in 3D on the corridor, I'll be looking at the surfaces, which is much easier to see in 3D. As you can see, they are much quicker and easy to look. So I've got some issue here. It seems that we've got an issue around this area here. Let's see where the issue there. Seems again some issue with the targeting around that area there. We'll look into it in a minute. But other than that, all looking good. Like this is just the lines between the existing surfaces, or between different surfaces. Okay. So let's see where the issue around this area here. Let's increase. It seems that I don't have enough sections between this area and that area there. I'll add extra few sections there if you don't want to increase the frequency too much. This is, I think, the only area with a frequency of 20. So let's check that edit, not target frequency for this area here, and that's what you can see. It's the only one with 20. Let's look into that. Now let's look into it in 3D. Make sure the surface is updated, and that's auto rebuild, build automatic, rebuild automatic. Perfect. So I'll just anyway rebuild them. Okay. It's rebuilding. Okay. So if I look into this surface again. Okay, that has been fixed because we don't have enough sections here to draw the right edge there. So if you have these minor issues around this area here, as you can see around the curve, these minor issues here, I'll show you how to fix them quickly. If you have these issues here, it's simply that line should continue without drawing triangulation to this point there. So to fix that quickly, I have to put this actual surface in triangulation, so rather than being in a contour format currently, so the surface properties, and I've got to choose it's in contours arrangement now. I'll put it into contours and triangles, so I can see where the triangles are, and I'll see where the faulty triangles. As you can see, I've got two triangles here, one here, one there. You can see the blue line on these two triangles. These are faulty. They should have another line here. Can you see this line? They should have that line there for triangulations. For some reason, the software didn't draw it. How to fix it? Just by selecting the surface, and I'll go edit surface, add lines. I'll add a line from here to there where that line should be, and I'll add another line there from here to there where this line should be. So by adding these two lines, I fix the surface. Let's take the surface back to where it was or should be, which is a design 0.5 and 2, or 1 and 5. That's the smallest I can see there. That's fine. It's a design surface. So now if I look at the surface in 3D again, it's the surface here, and these are the areas that we were looking at, and they looked a bit odd. They're already been fixed. Okay. Alright then, I'll leave that with you guys, and hopefully this video may help you.